Hello here and welcome again to another edition of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washed, making our way through this third week of spring practice. We're over halfway done, guys, now with spring ball, if you can believe that. As
really?
By Saturday, they'll have 9 of their 15 done. It's kind of gone quickly. And we talked about this earlier with basketball extending the way it did later.
Yeah.
And then the Easter week kind of following on that opening week. It just, the start of spring just had a different feel than maybe what we had seen in past years. But here we are. And this is a big week now. I think moving forward, Saturday, they're going to scrimmage. Yeah. And, we talked to Coach Rule before practice a little bit. He's like, yeah, they'll probably get 180 plays of work in. That's their, between the 3 units, they'll each get about 60 reps in. So this is a big week for these quarterbacks, this team, as we'll learn a lot more about some of these guys.
How much would you pay to see that? Come on, Sean. You're the money man.
Well, because it would help me.
Right. Would you pay $300?
Because I'd make more than $300 off the information.
Right. I mean,
true.
I'd
ROI.
I'd pay. I'm just gonna say I would pay good money to see it.
Now, there's some staunchy media members that'd be like, "We don't pay for access."
I was just, I'm just joking around, but I'm not.
We don't pay for access.
I'm just kidding. But I'll tell you what.
Well, we do, and we make good money doing it.
Integrity. What? Get out of here.
Integrity and integrity. Here's the thing.
We run a business.
That's right.
Here's the thing. I'd love to see those quarterbacks. I'd love to see them, particularly the freshmen. We saw, you know what? Oddly enough, we did see some of them this week in a Rule. I don't know, Sean, you guys talked to him maybe. Why he let us watch some live
situational teamwork.
Yes, live situational teamwork.
So it apparently just kind of lined up that way to where our viewing window was like right when they were scheduled to do that. And so there was this initial wave of panic where it's like, wait a minute, no, shut the door. And then all of a sudden we was like, nah, let them watch. And we all got to come out and actually watch some real football. 11 on 11, situational, drive to go score football. They're tackling. I mean, maybe not like full tap to the ground, but full thud.
Enough.
And it was probably the best opening portion of viewing practice we've had since they started doing that.
Yep.
And Dylan Raiola, I mean, we've talked about this, but his physical size in person, I mean, imagine how big you think Dylan Raiola is. He's much bigger than that in person. And his arm, I mean, it's like a machine throwing the football.
Okay, we better tone it
but
down.
I'm not saying
no, but I get where you're saying. I agree with all of that, Sean. It's really interesting to watch a guy throw like that.
Abdul Muhammad walked by me and he made a joke. He's like, man, if I had a quarterback that could throw it like that, I would have had over 1,000 yards.
Right.
I mean, they haven't had a guy, and Kalen too. I mean, both these guys for newcomers in the program are as far as ahead as I've ever seen as a newcomer coming in.
I think
Adrian Martinez didn't have the early spring, if I remember. I mean, he really didn't get to do much because he was coming off that shoulder. Remember?
Right. Oh, that's right.
So we didn't get to see him in that opening spring.
To be fair, though, Sean, some of this we haven't seen freshmen in this position because they're not put in a position. Now they are in a position. They have to get a lot of reps. They're playing against the ones and the twos. So some of it's just circumstantial, right? They're getting an opportunity.
When you have Dylan Raiola, who has arguably as strong of an arm as any high school quarterback in the country last year, and then Daniel Kalen, when they did an intelligence test, the Wonderlic type test at the Elite 11, scored as high as any quarterback that's ever taken that test.
Yeah, these guys they're groomed for it. Yeah. I mean, they've been doing it since they were freshmen in high school, probably even 8th grade. I mean, they've been in this spotlight, and that's I think the case for a lot of high profile quarterbacks now. Is I know that Rule probably wouldn't normally put 2 freshman quarterbacks up there, never played a snap at the podium on a spring press conference, but that's kind of the reality of where these guys are right now. For one,
how'd that look
it's the position that they play, but 2, they're capable of handling it. They look like veterans up there. Yeah. I mean, Kalen's been doing interviews since he was a freshman at Bellevue West. Raiola's been doing interviews since he got to high school. So, I mean, those guys are comfortable in that setting. They're not overwhelmed by that spotlight. And so you want to talk about their readiness as true freshmen in their very first spring of college football compared to others. I think that has a lot to do with it. They've just been groomed for this for so long that this isn't as monumental of a jump as maybe it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, not right now. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
The-
they're
the
not getting
autumn is-
tackled yet.
yeah,
We'll see what happens.
the autumn when they start playing, they start playing the ball games. Colorado will be intense.
That's another thing.
It's
They're
here though, which is big.
they're only going to be made live for contact to like a select amount in these scrimmages. I know that's been a big question. They're going to be open for some, but like it's not going to be like last spring where the quarterbacks are completely live. Now, I think that like a guy like Harburg might be live a little bit more just because his game necessitates that.
Yeah.
Like for him to fully operate the offense, he's got to run. And so, but the other two, I think they're probably going to get protected a little bit more.
I think it was a little easier last year to be live with those quarterbacks because big picture, they weren't really the long-term quarterbacks for this program. I think Rule was trying to get a cleaner look of the entire roster last year. And, maybe you could have maybe made a case at this time last year that Jeff Sims could have been here 2 years.
Maybe. Yeah.
But now
Maybe.
you see a 4-year picture, 5-year picture with these two quarterbacks. Like you don't want anything to set these guys back.
No.
And you don't have the numbers to have a setback.
No, you don't. That's a lot.
That's probably
again,
a bigger issue.
Yeah, that's a big issue. But they are okay. So if you just look at it, they're physically ready. They are, both of them. I mean, obviously you talked about Dylan, but Kalen's physically, he's fine. He's not too small. He'll be able to throw the ball down the field into wind, for instance. If it's rainy, he can handle all that. So can Heinrich. You don't know how they'll handle adversity in the autumn. I don't know. Now, how's that going to look when they throw a pick and lose a game? I don't know. That's why I don't want to anoint anybody, because you got to find out how they handle that when they play a big time team and it doesn't go well, because it's not going to go well all the time. How do they handle that? There'll be times when it'll feel like the world is literally caving in around them.
Like when you play Iowa or Wisconsin or Ohio State, guys don't really get open.
Good point.
The quarterback has to just find a way to get it in there.
Right. I'm always struck by football, Nebraska football, how there are moments where you're watching and you just know it does. It feels like the world is caving around the quarterback. It's caving in. Now, how do you handle that? I have no idea how they're going to handle that.
Well, they've got a great schedule to build early.
Yeah, unless they lose to UTEP.
UTEP.
Then it's not a great schedule, right? We'll see if it's a
they
great
lose
schedule.
to UTEP. I think you're going to move to El Paso.
but we'll see on all that. I don't think Nebraska's at a place as a program where you can just say, yeah, well, they'll beat El Paso.
No,
I don't know. I don't know if they will.
We don't really know what Illinois and Purdue and Rutgers. I mean, Rutgers will be tough coming in here, but we don't really know a lot about Illinois or Purdue at this stage.
Right.
We know Purdue got just decimated in the portal. They lost some good players.
And they were terrible last year.
And we know, they lost their best players. And we know Indiana has a new head coach.
Yeah.
And
we know Purdue has a terrible head coach. So
you're not a big Walters.
Why? It's terrible.
Ryan Walters is catching a stray.
He caught a stray.
Yeah, big time.
When we're in West Lafayette this year, I'm going to make sure you have a seat.
Well, how did his first season go? It was a curious hire, and his first season was terrible.
I'm going to make sure when we're eating West, you can see people coming at you, because he might come at you.
Oh, well, about his side.
Where's Sipple?
Anyway,
Tom Dienhart's going to bring him in and look for you.
Anyway, these quarterbacks are interesting. These quarterbacks are really interesting because they're physically good, and they both got strong arms.
But he won 5 games.
He is a returning starter.
I know, and he's pretty much forgotten.
I know. Well,
he's improved though. People have said he's improved too. So the real test will be the spring game when we can at least see all those guys in action.
Yeah, you want to talk about how they handle the spotlight, and what happens if one of those two freshmen throws a pick in the spring game, and then all of a sudden all this positivity flips on them a little bit, and people are being critical of them.
Yep.
I mean, that's going to be the first indicator of how they're going to handle what is going to be a significant heavier weight come the fall.
All right. When we come back, we're going to talk more offensive storylines that have come out of the spring. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washad, as we work our way through spring practice. If you're not a member of HuskerOnline.com, there's no better way to do it than taking advantage of this great offer that we have right now for our YouTube and podcast listeners. It is the best deal you're going to get. We're going to give you 2 months for $1. Promo code NU1 gets you 2 months for $1. Steve Sipple might even spot a couple people $1 if they need it.
Don't spend my money.
2 months for $1. Get you access with promo code NU1. Make sure you take advantage of it here at HuskerOnline.com. But let's get into the offensive storylines. We've already hit quarterbacks really hard at this point, guys. But the running back position is interesting because I don't think we're going to get a great overall picture of that.
Mm-hmm.
Gabe Ervin is going to be limited all the way through the summer, coming off that hip injury. Ramir Johnson, they're going to limit him because of his shoulder injury. Dante Dowdell is kind of getting acclimated to life at Nebraska. Emmett Johnson, I think, is probably the one guy you feel good about. And we, I think he said Quentin Ives on Saturday, Robin. Was he limited with a hamstring?
Had a hamstring.
So
he's been out, Sean.
You're seeing a lot of, other players getting reps of running back that probably wouldn't be normally in the discussion.
Yeah, there's a reason Maurice Mazuka's basically become the third down back for him. He got a lot of reps in the portion we saw today.
Yep.
So, I mean, great opportunity for guys like that. But I agree, like the real picture of that running back room won't be, I think, truly resolved until the fall. Once they start playing some real football and start gearing up for actual games. It's just one of those positions, kind of like offensive line, where it's just hard to evaluate truly until you're actually playing real football.
I still see some intensity, though. I mean, Gabe Ervin is there. He's there in a green jersey, helmet on.
He's not doing much, though.
Not doing much, but he's there. Ramir, Rule said, Sean, that Ramir probably could go full go.
Yeah, they're holding him back.
Yeah, they're holding him
He's
back.
a 6-year senior that's kind of – he's got some battle scars on him, and I don't think they want to push that at this point. They don't need to.
Now, I did lay eyes on Dowdell really, really up close for the first time today. Not as big as I thought he was. He's a little leaner in a good way, not a bad way. I mean, I don't like big, bulky eye backs. He's about perfect. But just it struck me that he's not. I thought he'd be more like a 225-pound guy.
Eddie George type.
Yeah, he's not like that. He's like he's legit 215. It looks like 6'2", 215. Carried a little bit. Looks powerful. But yeah, you're so right. You're just not going to know. I think it'll be Ervin in the end. I really do. I think Gabe Ervin in the end.
And Ramir. I mean, and can Dowdell slip in there? I mean,
yeah, that's the question.
If he's limited all spring, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, this was a big spring for him. It's unfortunate that he's having that setback because he was going to get a ton of reps.
The question, Rob, will be how long is the setback?
Yeah.
So he had missed a couple practices as of
if it's
Saturday.
A hamstring.
It's a hamstring. I know.
Don't go away quickly.
When Rule said that, I thought probably the exact same thing you did, which is, this is a big spring for Quentin Ives, and now he's got a hamstring.
Yeah, he'll have to rely on other guys getting hurt to get opportunity at that point, because this is his opportunity when guys were not available,
right,
to show it. Right. Like Emmett Johnson last year, when guys got hurt, he showed what he could do. That's how he got himself up in this discussion.
Right, exactly. So we'll just have to, again, why did I ask the question out of the gate? What would you pay to see? How much would you pay to see the scrimmage on Saturday? And the only way you can gauge a running game is to watch a live scrimmage with tackling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been over there enough times, and it drives me nuts when we're watching them play touch football, and the media corps over there, including myself, goes, "Oh man, that running back looks good." Yeah, he's not getting tackled. He looks great running through a hole. No arms on him. Perfect. The only way you learn is when they're going.
Do you remember when Scott Frost played an entire spring game like that one year?
Yes.
I looked at Robin and I just put my pencil down. I'm like,
did you?
Awful.
Like, how are we going to even cover this? Like,
all right.
I mean,
those are frustrating moments.
Those
those are spring games can be really frustrating.
Oh yeah, that's why the running clock in the second half is clutch.
That's why Bo Pelini started coming out with cats to make it more interesting.
Yeah, linemen catching punts. Remember that?
A single cat.
Alabama. Nick Saban used to do.
He made 6 cats.
Nick Saban made media field punts at the spring game.
I would do that.
God,
I'd do it.
Yeah, I'd probably do it.
You could catch a punt.
Oh yeah,
I'd like to see some of the guys we work with try to field a live punt. It'd be interesting.
It's hard.
It's not easy.
It's hard.
Those guys, it hits you hard too.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys that do it. Bill Bush tells a story about, he coached special teams, and at the start of a season, he'll ask guys to raise their hand if they want to return kickoffs, and you get a bunch of them. Then when you ask to raise them to return punts, a Couple, maybe.
The crazy ones.
Yeah. The people don't want to do it. It's hard to do.
You got to have some nerves to be able to concentrate on a ball like that in a huge stadium under the lights sometimes, or in the sun with 10 dudes running full speed at you.
Was it on Hard Knocks one year where Pac-Man Jones?
Yeah, he got like 8 balls.
Like they had 8, and he held all 8 of them as they were coming in. He just kept catching them.
So he'd catch 2, and he'd be holding 2 footballs. And
You're
catch
kidding me.
Pac-Man.
He could do that?
That was a good Hard Knocks year.
That's a serious
That was a great Hard Knocks.
That's a serious athlete. I mean, come on. That's amazing.
But
I think Pac-Man had kind of long arms, didn't he?
Yeah.
Wasn't he not tall, though?
No, he's a little guy.
I know, but I think he had pretty long arms for a little guy. Some of those little guys do have long arms.
Now, let's get into the receiver.
We really got off track.
As we're breaking down let's get into Hard Knocks the next season now and talk. Let's talk receivers briefly here.
Mm-hmm.
We know Banks is a guy, and I'll tell you, I think Jalen Lloyd.
Oh, no question.
Is really solidifying himself as a factor.
How many times did Raiola throw the ball to Jalen Lloyd in that drive that he was operating? I mean,
2 or 3 for sure, right?
Yeah, and including a big pass over the middle when they were backed up a little bit. So if Raiola is the guy, there's built-in chemistry already there.
Let's put it this way, Sean. On Saturday, Rule, during his media appearance, singled out one receiver. He said, "I'm not going to single out anybody." Then he singled out Jalen Lloyd.
Yeah. He was an impact guy last year, but you can kind of see it. He just looks stronger. Like, he doesn't look like a little track guy out there anymore. He looks like a football player.
I'm going to throw one name out there too, Ja'Cory Barney.
Okay.
I have been told that he has been as impressive as any of the newcomers, and he's looked good early. Ja'Cory Barney, the freshman from Miami, and Isaiah Nayor really had a big day, at least on Tuesday. So they've completely flipped that room.
They did. They needed to, and they did. Well, now, they had those guys, though. Jaden Doss, Malachi Coleman, and Jalen Lloyd. They're good receivers.
And Bullock,
pretty good receivers. So they had something to build on, but they did flip it. You're right.
And I give real credit. They figured out ways to utilize the speed of Coleman and Lloyd in moments last year, because they didn't have much. But they are like, let's maximize what we can with these guys and find plays. And they did. They found 3 or 4 big plays of those guys.
Monsters.
That mattered. Yep. But now they've got to get more. And that's where Banks, Nayor, maybe Ja'Cory Barney, some of these new players had to factor.
You look at the offense, and there's a lot of question marks at those skill positions. I mean, just because we don't know a lot about them. But the more I hear about that receiving core, the more I'm thinking that's going to be one of the strengths of that entire offense. I mean, I think just the number of weapons they have in that group. Now, they're all young, and they got a lot of guys that still need to prove it. Well, a lot of them are young.
Yeah, because they got Banks.
But I think you add that core young group of receivers that a lot of people are excited about.
And Demetrius Bell, too.
Demetrius Bell. With the veterans they brought in and returned, I think just the sheer number and overall volume of talent in that room is going to make that a real asset as opposed to a question mark.
Was Bell hurt, Robin?
Yeah, he's out.
Yeah, and I tried to lay
nothing serious though.
Yeah, number 11 wasn't out there.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. Banks is a proven weapon. I mean, he's had 59 catches last year. He's going to start, right? It'd almost be a shocker if he doesn't. At 59 catches last year at Wake Forest, 62 the year before at Wake Forest. Nayor is still a bit of a question mark because he was healthy last year at Texas and didn't play. I mean, now that was a great receiving core. After that, I think if I was going to name the top 3 right now, I'd go Banks, Nayor, and Lloyd. I mean, it seems like those are the guys with the most momentum.
Mm-hmm.
All right, when we come back, we're going to flip the page to defensive storylines in spring practice. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. Back here on the Husker Online Show, Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. We'll talk defensive storylines. But before we get to that, Steve Sipple, this segment of the Husker Online Show is brought to you by who?
Defense can wait. We're talking about Larson Motors. If you're looking for a new vehicle, go for a new experience at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. Larson Motors is one of the Midwest's only dealerships with all the major brands in one big locale. Finding your new Chevrolet, GMC, Hummer, Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram has never been easier. Start your new experience today at LarsonMotorGroup.com. Excuse me. That's LarsonMotorGroup.com or at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. Larson Motors, real people, real deals.
Are you still thinking about a Jeep? Get the top off?
No, I'm not. I'd go pick up. And it's very possible that time is coming.
Light duty.
Why do you always say that? I don't know.
That's what they're called.
You'd be light duty for me, Sean.
Get a little light duty truck.
That's just a cute little truck for you.
Okay. See, that's what I mean. Why'd you say that?
That's what they're not a full size truck. They're called light duty. I've done car commercials for years. There's different.
He can give you the stock number on it.
Yeah,
different.
What's that stock number out so fast? You'll think
full size,
stock number
heavy
45.
duty, and light duty, and you prefer the light duty.
Yeah.
What do you haul?
I carry
your
you,
notepads.
All right, let's talk.
All right, let's talk.
I know.
Defensive storylines here. In spring ball, and we talked to Tony White already once this spring. We'll hear more from some other guys, but again, I'll say it. Watching Nash Hutmacher, just looking at him move, like his stomach looks flat. He's moving at a high level. I'm excited to see what he looks like live because I think he's going to be a much quicker version. I'm not worried about the weight. I think he's strong already, but his quickness to me is going to be a factor on this defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, he's already right about 295 is what he said last time we talked to him. So, I mean, that'll be fine. You can add 10, 15 pounds over summer easy.
Oh, yeah.
So that part I'm not worried about at all with you, but like what really jumps out to me is like, so he's one of those older veteran guys that the staff is kind of intentionally just holding back. Like, look, we know what you are. We know what you can do. We know how to use you, all that sort of thing. Let's give some other guys some chances. Well, apparently that's been a lot easier said than done for him to handle. Matt Rule even said that he and Terrence Knighton got in a little disagreement during practice because Nash wants to get out there. He wants to play football. He's just wired that way. Like he's not built to just sit there and watch and be a mentor. Like he's a guy that wants to get in there and play football. And so like, you paired just his natural drive. We just talk about the self-motivation there. You saw it with his wrestling and the way he was able to take that on. That separates guys where he's got the talent, he's got the ability now, but I think that drive is going to push him to continue to get better and build on what he did last year.
That's why you like to see guys stay in programs and develop because what's happening with Nash Hutmacher is he's developing before our eyes. You can close your eyes. You don't have to if you don't want, but you could close your eyes and think back about the young Nash when he came here. He doesn't look anything like that now. Look at how confident he is at the podium, for instance. That wasn't Nash. And I think Sean, I think he's the closest they have to like a all Big Ten player on defense.
Maybe Ty Robinson, maybe Tommy Hill, maybe Isaac Gifford.
Gifford, yeah. Gifford.
Again,
I always forget Gifford.
How many teams are in the Big Ten next year? 18.
That's true. It'd be really hard.
Okay, let's just kind of think about it in this picture. Let's say there's 36 starting D tackles. You got to be two of the top 36.
Yeah, which means if you're two of the top 36, you're in All-American category. You're in All-American territory.
You're a second or third team at minimum.
Yeah.
If you're an All Big Ten first teamer, you're going to make possibly some All-American teams.
While we're talking about Gifford, Evan Cooper on Tuesday said he's one of the best players in the nation right now. Gifford, to put Gifford in perspective, he had 86 tackles last year. That's 35 more than anybody on the team. He had 86 tackles, 35 more than anybody else. And Cooper says he doesn't have a weakness. Coverage a little bit. He says he's working on his coverage, but yeah, they have some guys that could be in that all Big Ten range.
The hard decision, and we were talking to Coach Rule a little bit about this, like who will they bring to Big Ten media days? Because you can only bring 3 players. You got to figure 2 are going to be on the defense, but there's a lot of candidates.
Gifford.
Well, you have Gifford, you have
Nash.
Ty Robinson, you have Nash and Tommy Hill.
I go Gifford, Nash, then find somebody on offense.
And then the offensive discussion, is it Fedoni? Is it Benhart? Is it Ben Scott?
Well, could you bring Irvin?
You want to do that to him though, since he's kind of battled injuries every year.
I'd go
Good
Ben
question.
Scott.
I mean, you could Jamal Banks.
You could bring Banks
as a proof, but
I'd be very tempted to bring Banks.
well,
I would.
If he stays on this trajectory
Yeah.
that he's had so far,
I'd be very.
if Raiola is a starting guy, but they're not going to do. They're not going to
No.
bring a true
I don't
freshman.
think you do. I
I think you'd
not in
wait a year.
July.
They're not going to do that for a guy. No, they learned their lesson last year with Jeff Sims.
Yeah, he's got to win the job first before you bring him. I mean, seriously.
Down the road, though, he could be at that the next year.
Oh yeah,
No doubt.
yeah. But I think I'd bring Banks on offense. That's what I'd do. As long as, like Rob says, he's
Banks are a lineman.
Yeah.
Well, Ben Hart wouldn't want to really do like Teddy would do it.
Yeah.
Teddy and
I think Scott would want to do
Ben
it.
Scott.
You got to teach me how. You got to talk me out of Banks.
I don't know if I
But you're
can.
gonna- No, I mean they put him at the podium first. The first spring media availability we had, who was first up?
Good point.
Is Jamal Banks.
Good point.
So you're going to go Banks, Gifford, Nash.
What about Ty Robbins?
Well, I can't send everybody.
You can only do 3.
Yeah.
So you're taking Nash over Ty?
And I think the league.
Wrestling.
I think the
Wrestling
league
angle.
is pretty strict about just 3.
Yeah.
Because they don't want people slipping in. I mean, remember in the Big 12, I think Oklahoma would always try to bring extra guys.
Oh yeah, you'd see 4 or 5 sometimes from schools.
Because you don't want to upset guys that want to be there. But
Yeah.
that will be here before we know it, guys.
I know it's fun. It's in Indianapolis again, and you know what that means.
Sponsored by El Toro.
Live show.
Tuesday night dinner at El Toro.
Plus, I've just come to like Indianapolis. It's easy to maneuver around there, and that is a handsome stadium.
Great airport too.
Yeah.
It's great once you're there. It's
Yeah.
hard to get to
Yeah,
from here.
that stadium is beautiful.
Hey, the other defensive storyline we haven't talked about. How about Malcolm Hartzog?
Yeah,
Full-time safety now.
full time.
Now he's in that safety role that's basically like a nickel safety hybrid.
Okay.
So kind of like a slot corner safety type thing. But I thought it was interesting. Evan Cooper said during his asked about Hartzog. He said, I want to apologize to Malcolm Hartzog because they threw too much at him last year. They
Moving
made
him
him play
around.
too many spots and do
Moving
too
him around.
much.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of stalled his development a little bit. So this offseason, they've basically said, you are our guy at this safety position. You're going to work there every single day. It sounds like he's flourished in that role. And he said it's not so much about where he stacks up with the other corners in that conversation. It's just how much they like him in that role. It's kind of like with Gifford when he kind of settled in at that kind of rover safety spot, whatever, and just hit the ground running. I think you might see a different jump or a similar jump with Hartzog this year.
That'd be great. Now, so your secondary is Tommy Hill, Gifford, Hartzog, Buford, and then who's your other
Singleton.
corner?
He's
Wait,
hurt right now.
He's hurt. Who's your other corner is the question.
Yeah, that's the question.
Who's your other corner?
Boodle, Bly Hill.
Who we missing?
I mean, Buford is Buford strictly a safety.
It doesn't have to be.
I know he played corner early.
Rob.
Charles is in that conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Ethan Nation.
Yeah. Yeah. DeAndre Barnes.
Barnes.
I think Dwight Boodle is the guy to watch. I don't know.
Really?
It's a lot of it is still the versatility of what we don't know. Like, could Buford be a corner?
Right.
Because I think we know.
I think he could.
I think we agree who we think the top 5 are. Now Singleton's got to come back.
Now he's not playing corner.
No, he's a safety.
Yeah, he's an in the box safety. He can play. When he slides down, he's really good. He's good anyway, but he's pure safety, I think, isn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't
So
look like
Hartzog and him at safety, Gifford as the hybrid, and then is Buford worse? He fit.
I don't know. See, now you're going to get into some key questions pretty soon.
Well, they'll play a lot of guys.
Yeah, they do.
So Mario Buford, for example, is playing 3 different spots right now.
Yeah.
So it could be a multitude of guys at that corner position.
All right. When we come back, we're going to bring in Abby Barmore. We'll take your questions in the mailbag. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, and joining us here on the program, the world famous Abby Barmore, as we take your questions in the mailbag. Abby, what do you have to lead off today with?
We're going to start with basketball today. So do you think Nebraska is going to land any former in-state high school basketball players from the portal?
Yeah, I wouldn't rule it out. There are plenty of competition for the guys they've had on campus. Frankie Fiddler, William Kyle, both obviously visited, had very good visits, but are also now taking other visits. Right after Frankie Fiddler was here, we saw Creighton before. went to Wisconsin the day after his trip to Lincoln. And I think he's got at least another visit or two scheduled after the dead period here at the end of the week. So to be determined on that one. I think that Nebraska's in a good spot with him. It's just a matter of, what's he going to prioritize when it comes down to, is it going to be fit? Is it going to be, reuniting with people or whatever it is? We'll see on that. And then William Kyle, he's going to visit Iowa State, I believe, after this weekend, after the dead period. He's a player that's got a lot of interest as well. When UConn calls you, you listen. And I don't know how serious that recruitment is, but he has a multitude of options. But according to On3's Jamie Shaw on Tuesday, what he's been hearing is that Nebraska is a school that keeps popping up when he's asking about William Kyle. So seems like both of those situations are trending in the right direction, but visits to come that will ultimately determine that more.
You guys like my analogies, right? The Summit League, you know what it's become? It's like the USHL in hockey, like the Lincoln Stars and Omaha Lancers. Yep. And they develop the player and then they go to like a major school. The Summit League is like that right now. Mm-hmm. It's amazing to see these guys that are at like the Dakota schools and UNO. They develop there and then they get opportunities to go to these. It's unreal. I mean,
and they're good. They're good
players.
players.
Is something, I know it's not been good for the little guy, but NIL has changed college basketball for the good in the sense that it's eliminated the power of the shoe companies and it's allowed, more people
never thought of that.
To get power. And
Sean, that's a really good point. It's a really good point.
But if you're a coach with a program that doesn't have NIL, you hate it.
Well, you hate
you got
it.
your own shoe company.
You hate it, but I mean, you still, for instance, Andrew Morgan, the North Dakota State player who's transferring to Nebraska. They had him for 3 years, right? Mm-hmm. They got him for 3 years. The player at Alabama, is it Grant Nelson?
Grant Nelson.
They had him for 3, right? Did they have him for 2 or 3?
In Connect at Tennessee, Dalton Connect was at Northern Colorado.
Right.
JUCO before that.
Okay, so, but these guys, I mean, now I've watched Fiddler on tape a lot. He would fit very well at Nebraska. Mm-hmm. He's a scorer. He's interesting. Guys like Fiddler are always interesting to me because he's a kind of a below the rim player, but he averaged 20 a game. But he's got a wide array of shots, though. I mean, he's all 3 levels. He gets to the rim pretty well, good mid range, and can shoot the 3. I haven't seen a lot of Kyle, but Fiddler, man, I think he could come in and get 14 points a game. I mean, I do. Rob, he averaged 20.
In the Summit.
I know, but I think he can get you 14 in the right role. How about 10? I can sell you 10.
Maybe.
10.
It's amazing that early 2020s era of Nebraska high school basketball. I think we're going to look back at it,
golden era,
the 30s and the 40s. Like, there was an era.
Name them.
Well, you have Chucky Hepburn, Hunter Salas,
Fiddler,
Terrell Wright, or Wrightsell Jr.
Latrell Wrightsell.
I mean, you go down
William
the list
Kyle,
of guys.
St. Thomas,
South Dakota State guy, the guy that's at Creighton,
Baylor Shireman.
I mean, you go down the list of players that came through the state.
Jason Green, Isaac Trout.
Well, Trout wasn't even a factor really at Creighton.
No, he wasn't. But that's a good group you just named. You guys just named. That's
back in the 80s, there was that era in Nebraska where
when they had Jackman and Hoppin and Kellogg and Trotter.
I mean, like the World Herald will still write articles about that era of players. And I think this group now will be doing the same thing years later.
Kerry Trotter, Vic Lazzaretti, that group of guys, that was incredible. It was incredible.
All right, next question.
Next one. What are your thoughts on Doug Ewald's departure?
When athletic director moves happen, generally the people that are in the higher up roles that particularly came in with the AD don't stick around. I mean, we saw it with when Trev Alberts came. Garrett Classy was not renewed, but he was forced to actually finish out his contract. And they demoted him, and then he eventually, when his contract was done, left to go to Houston. So it's not really uncommon, but I would say it moved really quickly with Doug Ewald.
Yeah,
leaving Nebraska, where he made it about a week into the Dan era.
Yeah, he's an accountant, so I don't have a lot of profound thoughts. I mean,
but he was the number 2 to Alberts.
Yeah, he was. So, yeah,
and he's got a big name with his time in Omaha with the Med Center and Union Pacific Railroad and the positions he's held. But yeah, he did the interviews obviously with the Doc Talk podcast, and then there was a front page story on the World Herald on 1A of the overall front page.
I really believe that this might be the only market in America where we're having this conversation.
You're right.
Yeah. The only market in America where we're talking about the accountant.
But how many markets in America would have him on prominently on a podcast?
Exactly. None. 0. 1, actually, Nebraska.
So yeah, it's an interesting. Well, yeah, and Doug, he was a great guy. Did a lot. But
Great guy. I'm not saying he's not.
When changes happen, though, things like this happen. Yeah. It's just part. We've seen a lot of it, unfortunately, here in the last 20 years.
Right.
All right. Next question.
Will the single-digit jersey guys keep their numbers, or are they going to revote?
Ooh, I think those guys get to keep them.
Yeah. Well, Evan Cooper said that Gifford was a single-digit guy. They haven't announced him yet, but they're still referring to him as a single-digit guy. Yeah. So I think there's probably just no-brainers like that inherit it, I would imagine.
Yeah, hey, man, if you take it away.
I know.
Oof. So who's gone? Jeff Sims, Reimer, and
Piper.
Heinrich. And Piper. Well, Piper didn't wear one.
Yeah, but he was one of the guys.
So there were technically 11 then, right?
That's a really good question.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
no, 10. No, yeah, 11.
Because Piper didn't count for
right, because it was 0.
So there's 10 that had them.
0 to 9 plus Piper.
There's really only 3 that have opened up. I already see kind of a number conflict right now. Malachi Coleman and Dylan Raiola both are 15.
Yeah, that's a conflict.
That's good.
I think one way to resolve it is Raiola could or Malachi could demand a sum of money that Raiola could probably come up with. To keep it right.
Or
bribe him.
Raiola, if he wins the job, he could win a single-digit jersey.
Yep.
That's not out of the question.
No, not out of the question.
I will say, I would think, I'm just going to guess that Jamal Banks is a single-digit guy. That's done.
I think so. He's wearing 80 right now.
He will win a single-digit jersey.
Okay.
I believe that based on what we heard on the winter.
Yep. I wouldn't be surprised either. And I think Dylan Raiola could be heading that direction too. I think he's heading in the direction as the starter.
Okay. Yeah. So guys that are gone: Billy Kemp, Nick Henrich, Luke Reimer, Quentin Newsom, Jeff Sims, and then Piper.
So there's 5 to hand out right now still.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1, 3, 4, 6, and 7.
Correct.
We'll see. It's a good question. Really good question.
Yeah, and that will play out over the course of the year. But yeah, there's 5 more to give out.
When did they announce them in August last year?
They did them in like bunches.
On social media.
In August though, right?
Yes.
Generally
I
speaking.
think the last one was the end of August.
Yeah. So if I were a head coach, I would wait till camp.
Yeah, I think that's how they did it. Like after the first week of camp, they did the first grouping, like the first 4 or 5 guys. And then
because you find out your tough guys in August a lot of the time.
Irvin will have a shot at one. If he comes
Absolutely.
back, Ramiro will have a shot at one.
Yep.
Lots of guys there. Tommy Hill doesn't have one, does he?
No.
That's
he's
guy.
31.
All right, next question.
Okay, what are your thoughts on both of the Final Four national championship games?
Oh, they're similar to me. They're similar to me. South Carolina and UConn are teams. They remind me of each other in that they got bigs and weapons. Several weapons. It was incredible to me to watch South Carolina and UConn, how many ways they can beat you.
Mm-hmm.
And they both got
and
bigs.
They wore down Edie and Caitlin Clark.
Yeah. What jumped out to me was how both of those games, Iowa and Purdue, just came out sprinting from the opening tip. Zach Edey was possessed. Caitlin Clark was unreal.
18
in the first quarter. And they just were like doing like their like quintessential things that Purdue and Iowa do. And what did South Carolina and UConn do? They didn't flinch.
Nope.
I mean, they're panning to Dawn Staley. Dawn Staley looked like she was just watching practice because they weren't phased at all because they knew they were better.
They know what
they wore them down.
The
talent
so
and the depth prevailed.
If you look at the box score, Purdue, they got 37 from Edey and 15 rebounds, and they got virtually nothing from anybody else except Braden Smith.
That was the design.
1 of 7 on threes. Purdue.
1 of 7. Braden Smith had 12 points, but he was 4 of 12.
Mm-hmm.
Then they had 3 guys scoring single digits, and that's it. They were outmanned bad. Fletcher Lawyer didn't score. Outman, he's not the dude in that game. No. UConn's too good for a guy like Fletcher Lawyer.
UConn's too deep across the board. I mean, they're
pretty much
loaded.
Oh, they're loaded.
I'll be fast.
They're breathtaking.
Caitlin Clark in the WNBA will be, wouldn't surprise me if Caitlin Clark's WNBA games are on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
I guess. Here's the thing about that game, though. She had 18 in the first quarter. Then they put, I think her name is Raven Johnson.
Yeah.
Yep.
They put Raven Johnson on
Yes.
her, shut down.
She'll have
time.
better teammates around her in the WNBA though.
Mhm.
Like people that will finish
For
like,
sure.
She's led the nation in assist.
When
Right.
does the Indiana Fever play Diana Taurasi's team? That's what we need to figure
They're
out.
they're already advertising it. They're like
There you go.
the goat
Yes.
versus the rookie, and
Let's
then they
go.
don't put Caitlin's face on it, but they put her jersey number
Hey.
22.
Oh,
The
really?
anger of
So,
some
yeah.
of these WNBA
Yeah.
players is crazy.
It's not going to work in my league. Well, we'll see.
In
We'll
Caitlin
find
Clark's
out.
league, she's going to make you a lot more money.
Yep. Start guarding at half court.
They fly commercial for WNBA games.
Do they really?
Yes, they only make 70 grand a player.
We could see them in an airport. We probably have.
I've seen G League teams in the airport.
Have you?
Mhm.
But all right, final question. We're getting off the track here. Last question.
If you could have any restaurant exist in your home, what would it be?
Go ahead, guys. You won't pick mine.
I mean, I hesitate. I would probably go with like a versatile, high-end steakhouse type place that has a lunch menu as
Okay.
well. Like,
Then what are you talking about?
food. I'm just so many good steakhouses to choose from, but I'd go with like a Manny's or a Murray's, like one of those Minneapolis ones, because they actually have breakfast, they have lunch,
Really?
and they have dinner.
Do they really have
So
breakfast?
you're covered. You got everything. So I would go with one of those places because they have great salads. Not that we're going to probably go with that too often, but
Sometimes you need it. You can't have a steak every
they have a
meal.
breakfast menu, a sandwich menu, and steaks and seafood. So I'm going to go with like one of the Minneapolis steakhouses. I'll just say Manny's.
I could eat a burrito every day. So I would go, I don't know if my body could handle a Chipotle every day, but some sort of burrito place. There's a
you gotta name that.
Freebirds
Okay.
down in Texas. Phenomenal.
Remember the one
And
in
they do the
Jacksonville we found?
yes. Like I'd want one that is, like you said, a little more eclectic with the menu, that does a breakfast burrito, offers like fish, that sort of thing, so I can mix it up. It's some sort of relatively quick
Simple
burrito
site.
oriented
Don't say Applebee's.
restaurant.
No, I'm not.
Freebirds.
Outback.
You guys did good on
Freebirds,
that.
yeah.
Outback.
Yeah,
Outback.
I'd keep it simple at Outback. I would.
Simple and I went to Outback in Kansas City on our way to Hawaii.
It's never bad.
And
Know what you're gonna get.
their pipes froze though. Remember?
We did. We had to leave.
It was like that week where it was like,
It's never bad.
and like the manager's like, we don't mean to like cut you guys off
The
here,
restaurant
but
shut down.
we have no water. You need to leave. Like, perfect. Going to bed.
Gentlemen, you guys are in danger.
We
You need
pretty
to
much
leave.
we're
done.
Yeah. In Outback, I've never had a bad meal at Outback, and I've had, I don't know, roughly 900.
He gets the small. He
Oh
gets
my
the small sirloin.
Yeah, I get the small sirloin every time.
It's good.
Perfect.
At Misty's, they call that the SOB, the sweet old Bob.
Yeah.
right?
There you go.
Yeah. So I'd go Outback, and you can
Outback.
do lunch at Outback, and you can get salmon at Outback. And
There's
there's
breakfast.
I don't need. I mean, I'm not. That's not. a
I'm
priority.
sure they could make an egg.
Abby, do you have a call?
Come on, Abby.
Chipotle is an interesting one, but I might have to go. I'm obviously not as fancy as Sean, but I think I might pick Chick-fil-A because they have
Okay.
great breakfast, and you
Strong.
can get like chicken nuggets, chicken strip sandwiches. They have like the best salads on earth. I could eat one of their salads
Do
like
they really?
every day.
Do
They're
they?
so good.
Really?
Everything it's fresh every day. So
I just went into
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A. You can't beat Chick-fil-A. It's good.
mhm.
Good soup
Yep.
too.
Except on Sundays.
Yes, they have great soup.
Even
Yeah.
at Falcons games, they don't serve Chick-fil-A.
I'll just starve on
inside the
Sunday.
arena.
It's ridiculous.
That's a good call. So you're recommending their salad?
Yes, I'd recommend it to anybody. They got all kinds.
They got various kinds.
Yeah, they have a Cobb salad and a spicy Southwest, which is my favorite.
Okay.
And then like a market salad that has like fruit on it
Ooh.
stuff.
okay.
So they're great. And the wraps are good too.
I've never known you sip to go to Chick-fil-A. Have you been there before?
Yes, I've been there. And I but not very often, and usually for somebody else.
I was
going
going to
for
say
somebody
I've never. If you want to like find Steve Sipple at about 8:30 in the morning, it's usually at McDonald's on 56th and
No,
or 27th and Vine.
27th and Vine, whipping through and getting coffee.
Large black coffee, 2
Yeah.
Splendas.
Poor
I've been on
Spence.
that phone call with you about 100 times.
A lot of people have. And they note it too. How many times a day do you go there? Yeah, well, 2 or 3 for
I
sure.
have a large black coffee, 2 Splendas. Please pull ahead. I mean, I've got. I think my daughters know that.
He doesn't even need to order anymore. His truck pulls up. Usual, Mr. Sipple. You got it, Beth.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's gotten bad enough at that McDonald's where if I say 4 Splendas, the person will say, "Ooh, 4 today."
Ooh.
Yeah,
You okay?
You must be a little low.
yeah.
All right.
Everything going all right?
When we come back, lots to cover of Nebraska basketball. We'll talk about that next. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. Final segment of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washut talking Nebraska basketball. It has been a busy week. Robin, Nebraska adds a player from North Dakota State. And obviously they're bringing in more, offering more guys. Give us this. I mean, if you're just a guy listening, trying to catch up, give us the synopsis right now as we stand here on Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah. So a little over a week ago was when the last real big domino as far as attrition went with Jamarcus Lawrence hitting the portal. But then that Monday afternoon, actually, Nebraska staff met and went over a list of about 30 names or so at all different positions for priority targets and mapped out a plan to go take some visits. And then Monday night, the first stop Fred Hoiberg made was up to Fargo, North Dakota to see Andrew Morgan, the 6'10" center forward from North Dakota State. And the in-home visit went well enough to where a couple days later, he's making a drive on Wednesday, which was the day before the start of the recruiting dead period, just drove down by himself all the way from Fargo to Lincoln to do a quick little 24-hour visit. And the only other visit he had taken was Minnesota. Drives back up to Fargo, thinks about it a couple days, and on Monday announces his commitment to Nebraska. So after 6 departures, Andrew Morgan becomes their first addition. And, he could potentially be in the conversation to start. Absolutely. But I think to go into it right now, view him kind of like what Josiah Alec was at the beginning of this past season, to where he was coming off the bench, being that second big. Especially if Rink Mass comes back, that's a perfect combo for them to kind of alternate those guys. One, to give Rink a little bit of a break, because his knee might require another surgery. He played through it after having it scoped midway through this past season. So to be able to take some of the wear and tear off of him, I think would be a nice luxury, especially when you can compare it with Andrew Morgan, who isn't quite the shooter from the perimeter that Rink is, but has a lot of those same offensive traits.
Yeah, as far as the comp between Andrew Morgan and Josiah Alec, Andrew Morgan better shooter, not as good a rebounder.
Yeah, not as athletic.
All right.
But a really smart player, and he's 6'10", 245.
Yeah, he's active too for a 6'10", 245 pounder. I was thinking North Dakota State, 6'10", 245, might be a little lumbering. No, not lumbering. He's he's got good feet. He's very active.
They view him as a Rink Mass type.
Yeah,
that was one of the things Fred Hoiberg pitched him in their visits, was like they showed him clips of Rink Mass saying, this is how we want to use you.
He doesn't shoot the 3 as good as Rink, but he was, I think, Robin, he was 16 of 12 of 33. I don't know. He only shot 33.
Yeah, he didn't shoot a lot, but he made a decent amount.
He made 36.7%, I think, was about the number.
He shot 55% from the field. So, yeah. I mean, like he's
a good shooter.
Like I said, he's an offensive oriented big. He only had 5 rebounds a game, which, for a guy that big in the Summit, you might want a little bit more there. But again, I just see a lot of parallels with how Andrew Morgan will fit in with Nebraska and what Rink Mass did last year.
He'll fit.
You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. Robin Washut, Sean Callahan, Cecil, as we talk Nebraska basketball headlines. Robin, any feeling on Rink Mass right now?
So I exchanged texts with him this past weekend when he was down in Phoenix. He and several teammates went to watch Casey in the 3-point contest and the All-Star game there. And he said he was still weighing his options right now. And it's not just a matter of, a pro contract versus coming back to Nebraska. Like I said, his knee is probably the biggest X factor in that equation right now, to where he's still waiting to kind of get more opinions about if he's going to need another surgery on that knee, that if he does, that might limit his professional opportunities and might increase his likelihood of coming back to Nebraska, just because, he could use their sports science and recovery stuff to help with that, while also having a comfortable role in the lineup. So that, I think, will ultimately decide whether or not he'll have very many options professionally. And then also when you look ahead to this year, how much is that going to impact his availability going into the season, just depending on his recovery, if he does need a second surgery. So to be determined, but personally, I'm operating as if he'll be back, and things can change. But right now, if I had to guess and put my money somewhere, I say Rink Mass is back next year.
You have an incredible job because right now you've talked about this stuff for 5 minutes, and you could talk easily for another half hour about what's going on.
We've talked about 2 players.
Yeah. Because there's a lot. Well, first of all, there's 6 scholarships open.
And nobody's covering it at the level of Robin right now. I mean, just to keep up with it at the pace that it's happening right now, it's a tough job.
My family's not too happy with me right now because I'm always on the computer. But
join the crowd.
Then. Yeah, I know.
Good thing Joe Tipton's on our team now.
No kidding. Joe's the man.
Joe Tipton.
Yeah.
On threes, Joe Tipton
edits. So, like you said, 6 open scholarships, a lot of work still to be done here. And the crazy thing is that more and more names keep getting added to the portal by the day. The portal doesn't close until May 1st. So, like, to even try to narrow it down to this is the targets Nebraska's going after, I don't know if you can do that right now, because 1, they have so many spots to fill. 2, there's a very good chance that realistic targets don't even enter the portal until a week from now, 2 weeks from now, maybe even right at the deadline, and maybe even beyond with graduates, because the portal doesn't even apply to graduate players. Look at Boogie Coleman last year. He committed in August. So this thing could go all off season. Yeah. There's really no rush. Obviously, you need to try to get the bulk of your incoming class solidified, and some names that we do know. Gavin Griffiths, the 6'8" guard from Rutgers, didn't really do much statistically his freshman season, but he's a former top 50 player, was a 4 or even 5-star, depending on the industry ranking, coming out of high school. And towards the end of this past year, he really kind of started to click a little bit. So his overall stats aren't impressive, but if you look at the last 10 games or so, he was putting up some numbers, including doing some damage against Nebraska.
Hit a couple threes against Nebraska.
He's coming on campus. He'll be here this weekend on a visit. And I think his only other visit is Providence.
Ooh.
So
nail him.
I think Nebraska might put the heat on a little bit. And if they can get him a huge upgrade, especially after losing Casey and CJ Wilcher, they need 3-point shooting. Gavin Griffiths at 6'8" provides that and then some.
Sean, he's a long range bomber. I mean, logo dude. He's not afraid to put it up from 28.
High school recruiting has been to emphasize so much in basketball now, where this is like what it is. I mean,
unless you're the best of the best. I mean, the reason he's leaving is because Rutgers is bringing in 2 5-stars that completely changed the complexion of their roster. Like, Rutgers had 6 guys hit the portal, and in large part because they're putting all their eggs in these 2 freshmen. So that's still happening with the best of the best. But I agree with you. And that's a big reason why these mid-majors have become kind of a farm system for the high majors, is because, you can just kind of rotate them in and out at the high major level, and they get their development done at the mid-major level.
And those coaches get the hell out of there as fast as they can.
Yes, they can. It's tough, man.
Like we saw this year, any mid-major that had March success, those guys are gone.
Look at Indiana State. I mean, their coach left, obviously.
Drake's left.
But yeah, and they're completely gutted. Southern Illinois from a couple of years ago, they had 2 Big Ten starters on their roster and still almost made the tournament.
It's interesting though, because there's Power 4 teams, Power 5 teams, call it what you want, that get gutted too. Alabama had 9 new players. I mean, Nebraska, the team you're covering, gutted.
Yep.
I mean, so it's everywhere.
Yeah, the days of Nike and Adidas running college basketball are no more. I mean,
they're not needed.
They used to dictate where the good guys go. They were the only NIL collective.
Yeah, they're not needed.
And now everybody's got a bank account.
Well, and the money being thrown around to guys that are like even just good players, like not even all conference level players, is just so outrageous. Like, I mean, you don't get any like official figures on this, but what you hear through the grapevine, I mean, for a good like power conference level starter, $500,000.
There you go, Sean.
And that's like,
Sean, that's not all conference.
And that's where like the bidding starts.
Yeah.
So
what do you think?
That's what you're dealing with right
for
now.
Hunter Dickerson?
Yeah. Millions.
So a couple million.
7 figures.
Do you think they paid $1 million?
The on-3 valuation, believe it, I mean, it wasn't that high on him. I mean, I would say like
I wouldn't be surprised if it's $1 million.
Not millions, but maybe a million.
The dudes that are getting $500,000 right now aren't even on the remotely close to the level of a guy like that.
Yeah. We talked off air about one, and no, they're not even close to Hunter Dickinson.
Just wait to see what Arkansas starts paying people.
Arkansas is about to have
and they've got money.
Tyson family,
Walmart,
the Waltons,
they got money.
That Jerry Jones,
and they're hungry.
Yeah, the Tyson family, the Waltons, and Jerry Jones can fund a team. Trust me.
Why did Musselman leave to go to USC?
That's a good question.
I don't know.
That's a really good. USC going into the Big Ten, right?
Mm-hmm.
He strikes me as a guy though that kind of wears his welcome equipment.
And him in LA too. I'm sure that's probably some of the appeal, like the celebrity aspect of it.
It's a good question though.
And Jerome Tang and these other guys turned down Arkansas. Did they really turn it down?
Jerome Tang turned it down, and Chris Beard turned it down.
But they got a better coach than those guys.
But there was some talk that there might be some NCAA penalties coming for Arkansas, but I don't know if Cal would take that job if it is. So who knows?
Well, he's running from the posse at Kentucky.
Yeah.
I mean, that Mitch Barnhart's the Kentucky AD, and he had to come out and say Calipari will be back. That's trouble. When your AD has to come out and tell the fan base that he'll be back, say goodbye.
Well, in the latest report, Cal tried to come back to Kentucky and say, "Hey, I'm having cold feet. Do you want to match what Arkansas offered?" And they're like, "Nope."
Oh,
see you later.
We also know that he walks his dog with a stroller.
He does. Very curious.
That was bizarre.
Now the dog does get out and walk. The dog was walking,
but he's in this neighborhood of mansions, walking his dog with a stroller. And the better part, the media was there.
I guess it's a thing, though. I've heard it's a thing.
Oh no, they sell those at PetSmart. Okay. I've seen them. We never got one when we had our dog, but you're a big time NCAA college basketball coach. You're walking your dog in a stroller.
It's a thing, though. It's a thing.
I'd pay money to see you walk Bullet in a stroller.
No. I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of odd for sure. And that reporter, God bless him, approached him, and Calipari was cordial enough.
Yeah.
He was still wearing blue at that time.
He was.
All right.
Yeah. Long story short, stay tuned over the next few weeks.
Lots more to follow on HuskerOnline throughout the weekend of basketball. Once again, not a member, check us out. $2 or $1, will get you 2 months of access. Simply use promo code NU1. That's the best deal you're going to get. Check us out at HuskerOnline. For Abby Barmore, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, I'm Sean Callahan.